morning and Assalamualaikum to audience and panelists. My name is Maisara and I am representing Student Association of Intech Education College, and I am honored to be given the opportunity to be the moderator for today. Today we have a line of amazing panelists to discuss on the impact of coronavirus towards Malaysian life, where we'll be talking about how it has changed our lifestyle. According to the statistic provided by the Wikipedia, it is now has been over 18 million confirmed case reported worldwide, with over 500,000 deaths, making it the latest pandemic that have made its way in our history. Our goal today is whoever you are, that you will gain more understanding and see new perspective towards our current situation towards the end of this discussion. So now, I will start introducing our panel. With the red hijab is our Aisha, Miss Aisha, Deputy Director of Malaysian Institute of Economic Research with 20 years of experience. And the black, we have two people with two black and spectacles, but it's okay. Ms. Zulaika, can you raise your hand? She is the expert in business accounting at EY, and Miss Alisha is the student at UITM, majors in economic, and she is a second year. With the blue hijab is Miss Ashrani, senior lecturer at UITM, lecturer in biology with 6 years experience. And finally, we have Miss Amni, junior reporter at Berita Harian with 3 years experience. So, I will start this discussion with, let me first welcome Miss Zulaika, our expert in business consultation, to give her thought in this discussion. How COVID has really affected our economy in Malaysia, Ms. Zulaika?
Okay, thank you, moderator, for the question. Okay, as we can see, COVID-19 has affected Malaysia in many ways, including our economy. Currently, International Monetary Fund has announced that this pandemic will cause a global recession, uh, which could be worse than the crisis we have undergo during 2008, which have triggered by subprime mortgage. This pandemic has resulted in economic crisis, which involve practically all countries in the world, and the recovery is expected to take a very long time. As long as new cases will be reported, the economy system will always be submerged. Our study has shown that this pandemic will have a devastating effect in our Malaysian economy, both external and also internal factor. For external, we can see that it has give effect for global supply and demand shocks. This is because Malaysia is a small country which are dependent on other nations such as US, China, where we get our supply and also our stock from there. When these other nations are affected by the pandemic, it is also expected for our country to feel the pinch from that. For internal factor, the government action itself has affected our economy. As we knew, Malaysia government has taken a proactive measure in order to curb the spread of the disease, which is by imposing Movement Control Order MCO since March 2020. This is actually a very good measure to break the chain of causation of the infection itself. However, this also have an adverse effect to the economy as people become too careful in order to avoid the infection itself. People who love to travel stop traveling. Those who want to go to mall, who wants to watch movies or shopping, they also restrain themselves from doing so. This is because they want to avoid any unnecessary contact, which can continue the chains of causation. This is bad for the economy as the government will have a decrease in income from certain industry like airlines industry, travel industry, and also smaller business might close down because of this. Layoff need to be made as they cannot pay their employee. This will also increase the unemployment rate. So from here we can see that the government plays a very important role to reduce the negative economic effect from this pandemic. The government must not only focus to flatten the curve of the infection itself. From Malaysia perspective, we have done MCO, but also try to flatten the curve of the economy in order for us to achieve the balance between both public life, which is the people itself, and also the economy, where the people will spend to find their necessities.
So is that all? So as we can see, to recover back our economy, we need to maintain low number of cases, right, Miss Laika?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you, Miss. So moving on to Miss Aisha, as a person who is in the same field with Miss Zulaika, can you share your thoughts on the impact to our economy?
Yeah, thank you, Moderator. As told by Ms. Zulaika, the economy has been affected so badly, especially for the tourism, airlines, industry, and business. The outbreak has exposed a major risk to a Visit Malaysia 2020 campaign, as 50% of Malaysia tourists are all from Singapore and China. But the increasing cases of COVID-19 in both countries has led to the cancellation of many tours, which has already led to a large drop in the number of tourists to Malaysia. In order to fully contain the virus, the Prime Minister has announced the MCO as they expected the number of COVID-19 cases would continue to increase. The prohibition has further contracted the Malaysia tourist industry, and therefore effective policy to assist the industry are imperative. Also, the airline industry player has highlighted that the current travel bans and plummeting demand around the world has put the loss-making carrier at risk of bankruptcy. All three Malaysia major airlines, namely AirAsia, Malindo Air, and Malaysia Airlines, has initiated salary cut range from 10% to 100%, and unpaid leave depending on the salary range and position, also redundancy among the employee. The drastic loss of both revenue and profit for all three major Malaysian-based airlines, which has resulted in a high risk of bankruptcy, has caused the airline to ask the government of Malaysia to step in to provide support to the airline industry. That's how it affected the airline industry. Also, the impact on hotel businesses as the tourism also has badly affected. A total around 200,000 hotel room booking during the period of January to March 2020 has been cancelled, which caused a loss of revenue amounting to 68 million, and the loss was directly attributed to the outbreak of COVID-19. But on the list, the Kuala Lumpur was at the top, which is the cancellation of hotel booking has caused a loss of like 23 million in revenue, and followed by Sabah, which suffered a loss of 11 million in revenue. The state which has been less affected of COVID-19 is Sarawak, with a loss of less than 23 million. And the local hotel sector also projected a loss of 3 billion in revenue by June 2020. In tandem of the statistic of room cancellation of the hotel, the workers in hotel industry also affected, which in the Kuala Lumpur has been worst hit by the pandemic. Around 3% have been laid off, 20% workers have been take unpaid leave, and almost 16% workers has faced pay cut. So that's how the MCO has affected the industry, like business, tourism, airlines, and that's all.
Oh, okay, thank you, Miss Aisha. So it is now we can see that COVID-19 has been negatively impact our business in this country, right? And thus affecting our economy as a whole. So Now, moving on to our next panelist, Miss Adisa. With the restriction of having crowd gathering, public school and universities were forced to shut down. As a second year student and someone who is directly affected by this action, can you share your point of view on this matter, on this situation?
First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to deliver some information on our forum today. A very good morning to Miss Maisara, panels, and my beloved audience. Like what Miss Maisara mentioned just now, I am currently in my second year of study in economics at University Teknologi Mara Shah Alam. So, as a student myself, I also think that COVID-19 can cause a major effect on our education as well. As you may know, COVID-19 is considered to be a global health crisis of our time and the greatest challenge we have faced so far in 2020. This causes many countries around the world, including our country, have decided to close educational institutions. Now, all schools are forced to switch from in-person teaching to online learning. I believe that this short-term disruption will cause a massive shock to students' social life and learning. Although online learning can help students to improve their time management, I still find it to be challenging due to the lack of interaction that students will get with their classmates and instructors. In Malaysia especially, most schools have relied on face-to-face lectures. Tutorials are also important for students as they can directly share their views and clarify their queries with their teachers and thus getting their questions answered right away. Although this can be done through online classes, I still think that the quality of teaching will not be the same because from what I understand, students can access more information and gain better understanding through their teachers' body languages and voices. Some students may also suffer even more due to the lack of resources such as a computer to work, photocopy machine, and a quiet space to study. When students have to move back to study from home, they can no longer enjoy these facilities. So that's why I think that face-to-face teaching is very important because students will be able to concentrate harder since there will be less distraction in classroom as compared to online learning at home. Furthermore, there are also some students that have experienced the same problems regarding to the limited access to reasonable quality internet bandwidth. This is because coverage and speed of internet also vary depending on one's budget and locations. Based on the Internet Users Survey conducted by Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, it is found out that there is a sizable disparity between urban and internet users. It is also stated that urban users make up for 70% of internet users. Hence, it is possible that some students, especially those who reside in rural areas, do not enjoy the internet access like the way most of their peers who live in urban areas do. Therefore, these students run a high risk of being left behind if classes are entirely conducted online.
After hearing your view, and I can conclude that you and your friends must having a hard time facing various hardships. So, but as a student, I'm sure your lecturer must have a hard time and their own challenge too. So, in this situation, I would like to ask our next panelist, Ms. Ashrani, as a fellow lecturer at UITM, to give us some insight of your experience on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Miss Maisara, for inviting me here today. It's an honor to be here. As our young fellow Alisa has just said just now, COVID-19 really has impacted education sector heavily in our country. As a lecturer myself, I think the challenge really imposed on the adaptability in teaching online. Like Alisa said just now, you cannot assume that everyone has the same unlimited internet access and possess the correct tool to learn remotely, such as laptop or the compatible smartphone. And then addition to that, there are certain areas with a lower coverage of internet which affected the internet speed of the user. So this indeed will affect the process of learning to both lecturers and students, as the lecturer might not be able to give a good performance in giving the lectures, as the video will stuck if the internet speed is not high enough. This happened to me directly when sometimes the internet will get lagging and the video will get stuck. even though I recorded the video, when I'm doing the live class, the video will still get the part where it gets stuck. So sometimes it's hard for me to teach my student, and the student also might miss the point that I say when the internet having problem and the video gets stuck. Also, other than that, the quality of teaching also definitely will be impacted, as both lecturer and student rely on face-to-face classes on normal basis. In online class, there is lack of spontaneity in the class, as the lecturer might not be able to notice if the student asks the question on the chat box or raises their hand in the class. Like in Zoom, we have the feature called raises your hand, right? So when sometimes I did not notice that, so I continue rambling, and then the student cannot ask the question. So I might miss that the point where the student asks the question, on along. And then lecturers and students in the science stream especially will have a more challenge to them, as they might not have the correct tools to teach in online classes, because their mode of studies heavily relies on their work in labs. This implies, especially to postgrad students, the students might need to defer their studies in order to properly work on the research and experiments. Um, like in biology, we have research and experiments we need to conduct the experiment in the lab. So sometimes experiment it will also involve live organism. So when we have MCO, they will restrict few people. We cannot do experiment during MCO, so the organism also might die because there's no one to take care of the organism in the lab, right? So it will heavily impact on their research during the studies. So they need that's why we cannot really do online classes for biology, because sometimes we need to do the experiment itself in order to learn it more easily, and it's really so it's easy to understand. So I think that's all from me.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Miss Ashani, for your uh, insight. So it is proven that this situation has impacted negatively. I'm sure there is some positive, but mostly is a negative for both student and educator. And it seems that we still need to have physical class, right? So
Yes, I agree.
I would like to ask for our next panelist, our last panelist. So as a reporter, I'm sure you have faced various situations in creating news since the COVID outbreak. Can you share with us your experience or your opinion on this pandemic situation?
Thank you to our moderator, Ms. Maisara. So here, I am a junior reporter in Berita Harian, and we cannot deny that it is very different, especially it changed our culture. Okay, so that's why we got a lot of complaints. So what we can see that after the government started producing the SOP about social distancing, it changed drastically our traditional culture. We are preferred to stay at home and minimize our outside activities. But with the help from the government, influencer, and so on, we become more comfortable in getting to get used with the social distancing. We can say that at first we feel very, very awkward to do, but because of the COVID-19, so we are prohibited from go outside. And we can see that our way in greeting someone change, like we have to put a hand on the chest and bow slightly our head rather than handshakes. So some people may find it very difficult to follow. And we also received a complaint from a Malaysian who went for 3-day trips in Perhentian Island, where she said that she felt very vulnerable when she go to the places the social distancing is not applied by the visitor. So she felt that it is dangerous, even though she even herself tried to bring her own pen, bring hand sanitizer, wearing mask, and so on. Okay, but however, Malaysian, who is a pharmacy assistant, she said that the place she visited is still at higher the SOP, like supermarket, shop in the malls and food courts. She said that of course there are some people who still take the SOP for granted. However, due to unexpected circumstances, such as large crowds, which make it very difficult for people to apply the social distancing, which is very understanding. Our economy say that Miss Nur Aisha say that our unemployed percentage getting higher during COVID-19. Many people got laid off without paid. Some got jobless. So people become more creative in trying to find a way to manage their financial, like they go for becoming delivery, like food panda and so on. We can see that. However, some people still take advantage of the situation, like drugs. They even now they try to sell drugs through food panda. This is the disadvantages of the situation. And also there are even see it ourselves that during the COVID-19, people become very, very stressed. Mental health is very on edge, like we can see from the autism community, from the autism individuals and the caretakers. So there are some family reported about the cases of broken furniture, uh, self-injurious behavior. So it very dangerous. And parents itself, the mentality of the parent become very on edge. They have to deal with the behavior of the child. They have to think how to manage the financial resources in controlling, in managing how to pay for their child care. However, due to the situation where Malaysia slowly coming into the recovery phase, that the complaints slowly become decreasing. So I think Malaysians are slowly to try in united with the new SOP, with the new culture, and also we slowly know how to manage our problem. And okay, that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Miss Amni. That is very insightful and very informative for us. So now I would like to thank all our panelists for today and spending their time with us. So to sum up our forum discussion today, COVID-19 has revealed some shaky foundation on which much of what we take for granted. So, and now we need to live with we are forced to live with new norm. But if we take serious of the regulation and the SOP and work hand in hand together, I believe we can fight this pandemic. So with that, I hope everyone found this forum helpful, and that's all from us. Thank you.